In my opinion, I think what's happening is they're finally realizing everything that all the law enforcement leaders and sheriffs and district attorneys were trying to tell them at the time that they, were looking to pass this bill. Now they're seeing it all come to fruition. Now they're seeing how, the state is basically lawless. When you don't have consequences for people's actions, of course, there's no accountability. So if there's no accountability, people are just going to run around and do whatever it is they want to do, which is the whole purpose for us having laws in the first place.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. Hey, Black and Blue fan, welcome to the latest edition of the Black and Blue Podcast, where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. Y'all know me, my name is Dale, and I'm the host. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me today because I got a real good one for you. But before we get to that, let me ask you, please click those like, subscribe, and bell icons right down here on my YouTube channel. And if you listen to me on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you rate the Black and Blue Podcast 5 stars. And finally, make sure you check me out on any one of my social media pages for even more content. You can find me everywhere at Black and Blue US. All right, so with that down, let's get to it. My guest today is a sergeant at the largest sheriff's department in the nation, and he's here to tell us all about his exciting and rewarding career. So Black and Blue fam, help me welcome to the show, LA County Sheriff Sergeant Torre Williams.
What's going on, Dale? How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, sir?
Blessed.
That's what I'm talking about. That's all we can do is stay blessed for and appreciate everything we do on the daily, right?
Yes, sir.
Waking up for another day, right? So I said that.
Good day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I said that you are a sergeant with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. How long you been there?
With the department, I'm coming up on 17 years.
Okay. Well, congratulations for all that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And are you originally from SoCal?
Actually, no. I am born and raised in Chicago, south side of Chicago. Yeah.
What brought you out here?
No snow.
Yeah, you get a little bit out there in Chicago. Definitely.
No snow, and the cold weather here is definitely not like the cold weather there.
No, not that. That it is called the Windy City though. So yeah, definitely.
Not because of the wind though.
Really?
So a lot of people actually get the misconception that because it's windy, that it's called the Windy City because of the wind, but it was called the Windy City back in the 1920s because of politicians. They were full of hot air.
Oh. So kind of like 2024, right?
Basically.
Yeah, basically, right? But that's another topic for another show. We'll talk about that. Yeah. How long you been out here in Cali?
Almost as long as I was in Chicago. So I moved here when I was 26. So it'll be 23 years this year.
All right. Had you been out here before? What made you want to take the trip to here as opposed to, say, Florida or Arizona or what have you?
So coming out here, actually, my ex-wife, who's also from Chicago, lived here at the time we were together, and it was a perfect transition.
Nice. So let me ask you: are you a Bears and Bulls and Cubs fan? All three of those?
Bears, Bulls, and surprisingly, I did not really like or watch baseball growing up. So technically I would have been a Sox fan because I grew up on the South Side.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I actually grew into being a Dodgers fan.
There you go. There you go. I'm not really a baseball fan until like, the playoffs roll around myself, but
Yeah.
Lakers and Niners, because we didn't have a football team out here for so long. So everybody had to get something. The Raiders are
Yeah.
gone, all that. So yep, yep. All right. Well, cool. Well, welcome. You were a California boy now. So I appreciate you
That's what
coming
I
out here
hear.
and yeah, and serving out here in LA County. So let's talk about your position there. You are a sergeant. What do you do over there right now?
I'm a sergeant at Carson Station, so I work as a field sergeant.
Okay. And for our listeners and viewers, where is Carson?
The station is uh, up near it's south and west of LA proper. So north of Long Beach, if you will, in that area, going towards Manhattan Beach and South Bay area.
Nice, nice. And how long you been the sergeant over there? One of the sergeants.
Since 2022.
Okay. What shift you working right now?
It's a right now I'm working day shift. I'm at home. I'm at work right now because I'm off. I'm injured. I had two surgeries following an
Oh,
accident. So right now it's just day shift at home.
day shift at home. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, day shift at home until I get back to work.
How's the shoulder holding up?
It's been better. It's
Yeah.
been better, but it's a work in progress.
What happened?
So you familiar with the Unity tour,
Yeah, I am.
Police Week, and all that out in Washington D.C. So 2021, I was on the honor guard for the department, honoring one of my partners who passed away in a fatal car crash. Um, so during that year, one of my really close friends, who was also a sergeant, was actually Sergeant Brax, was riding in the tour that year, and he passed away unfortunately during the tour due to a medical condition during the ride. So the following year in 2022, I was training to ride in the tour to ride for Chris, and I had a bad crash coming around the corner downhill at about 25 miles an hour. Sent me into a fence post and tore my shoulder all up, bulged a couple discs in my neck, and yeah, that kind of took me out. So
Wow.
here we are, still
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
recover from that.
Okay. Well, speedy recovery. Hopefully, you can get back, full range of motion and get back to work.
Yeah, we're working on it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, um, you came out here as a young 20-something-year-old man.
Oh,
Yep, yep. And when you came out here, were you in law enforcement already?
oh, actually, at the time I was in banking. Uh,
Banking.
banking. Spent a lot of time working in banks, working in the mortgage industry, and but law enforcement is in my blood. It's in my DNA. I'm third generation.
Oh, okay, okay. So who was prior?
So prior to me, my grandfather was a deputy Cook County sheriff's back in Illinois. Uh, two uncles and Chicago PD, and my aunt on Chicago PD.
Okay. And then if you would have stayed, you might have been Chicago PD, but you came out here. And then what made you want to do the jump from banking and finance?
What made me want to? I'm sorry, you broke up.
Yeah, what made you want to make the jump from finance into law enforcement? Actually
So,
making that jump.
so from I'd say the age of 4 or 5, I can say at that point I decided that's when I wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be a police officer. Seeing my granddad go to work, get dressed, seeing my uncle, at work and going to work and things like that, and just seeing how cops were in the city of Chicago, in the neighborhoods that we grew up in, and I wanted to get into that field because it was exciting to me. It was something that I wanted to do. So at the time that I made the decision, the market, as far as mortgages were concerned, was on a downward slope. So,
Yes.
at the time it was like, okay, it's time to make a decision here. Do I continue and stick out in this career path where I wasn't really feeling fulfilled? I wasn't really feeling like I was following the path that was meant for me. And I made the decision to, just drop that and go full bore into following the career path that I wanted, which is law enforcement. Here we are today, 17 years later.
17 years later. All right. All right. And why LA County Sheriff?
So you might know, we all pretty much did the same thing, right? It's like, okay, which department do I want to work for? Well, me being, relatively new to California, I didn't know which department was going to be the best department. Of course, everybody knew LAPD just because they're always in the news, they're always on TV and in the movies and things like that. So it was one of those things where like, okay, cool, let's do a bunch of applications, send them everywhere.
Yep.
Whichever one accepts you and takes you on, that's kind of where you go. So at the time I got hired with LA County, I was in the process for CHP, LAPD, Orange County Sheriffs, Riverside County Sheriffs, and it was just okay. Who's gonna move the fastest and get me to my goal. So LA County was the fastest. I guess they had the biggest need at the time, so that worked out
Yeah.
to my benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a large department. I mentioned in the intro there that it's the largest in the country. How many sworn?
Right now, we're just above 10,000.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, just above 10,000. Um, we kind of go back and forth with LAPD as far as our numbers are concerned, but as well as I do that that's a very, very low number for the size of our department that it should be. We should be somewhere around 15.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts right there. Facts right there. Actually, that's a larger number than LAPD is right now. But I would assume a lot of your deputies are in custody and transportation and court. So
Right. Yes.
you got that to worry about too. Yeah. So yeah, for the listeners and the viewers, tell everybody a little bit about the duties of the sheriff's department. What you guys are responsible for?
So we have currently 24 patrol stations. We have, I don't want to give you a wrong number, but we have a bunch of courts.
Yep.
We have a bunch of custody facilities, which are going to be the jails like Men's Central Jail, Twin Towers, IRC, Wayside, all the different jails, CRDF, the female jails, and things like that, that house all of our people in custody. And that's everything from low level crimes to your high level crimes, your mentally ill, intake system at IRC, and all of those different things. In addition to court services that manages all of the courts, criminal courts, and things like that.
Yeah.
Transportation services. And then obviously everything that goes with patrol, from the patrol stations to detective bureau, special investigations like SVB, major crimes, homicide, narcotics, things like that.
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot to do in the sheriff's department, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
but you start out in custody or transportation or courts. Is that correct?
So everybody starts out pretty much the same. They say you're gonna go to custody, and you go spend some time in one of our jail facilities. It might be IRC, which is the reception center. It may be one of our housing jails, like Wayside or Twin Towers, or even Men's Central Jail. Or you can get lucky and go to courts, but from time to time they go back and forth and determine that court deputies need to be patrol trained, and sometimes they don't. So, I mean, you have some people that have been grandfathered in over the years, and that just depends on who's the administration. But yeah, you spend some time there, you put your name on the list to the station that you want to go to. And, as time progresses and people start to move to different positions and promote, move to detective and things like that from patrol, those patrol spots become open, which gives the station the opportunity to choose from custody whoever's next on the list to come in and do their patrol time.
Right. Right. And what's the average? I've heard horror stories, maybe not LA County, but Orange County, up to 10 years in custody before those guys get out and patrol.
Well, see, Orange County is set up a little bit differently. See, they have custody deputies that are specific to their whole thing is, well, we are now, but their whole thing is separate. So you have deputies that want to go to patrol, and then you have deputies that are just specifically custody deputies.
Yeah.
Our deputies are the same pretty much across the board. However, we do have a clause for deputies that don't want to go to patrol to stay in custody. And then we have those that do want to go to patrol can go to patrol. I spent 5.5 years in custody before I went to patrol with no extensions and no, me trying to say, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. No, I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. 5.5 years.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
No,
And
but now,
let's
let's see, now I think we got guys that are going out at 6 months, some going out at a year, depending on what station they want to go to.
Yeah, some of those busier stations need bodies sooner.
Everybody needs bodies now.
Yeah. I was saying like some of those prime stations, maybe like Malibu or some of those other stations, up in the mountains, probably don't need as many bodies as you would say Carson or something like that, right?
Carson, Century, Lakewood, those would definitely be busier stations. But I think the stations that are moving at 6 months were like Lancaster, Palmdale. And then some of the stations are at about a year, down here in the basin in the general LA area.
Yeah. And Lancaster, Palmdale, that area is growing and hence the need for more deputies. And just recently, a few months ago, they had a deputy that was killed up at that station, correct?
Yeah, Ryan Klinkenbrunner.
Yeah. Can you talk about what happened there?
It's just a sad situation. Ryan was actually just leaving the station. He had just pulled out of station in his radio car. I can't remember where he was going or what he was doing, but he pulled out of station, stopped at a light. Something happened with this guy that pulled up on him with another officer, another deputy. Guy pulls up behind him on the opposite side of the street where he's in Ryan's blind spot and, fired a round that he took in the back of the head. He never saw it coming. And it was just one of those situations. And luckily, bystanders saw it and, were able to, notify the station of the incident. And, they were able to get out there and render him aid and get him transported. But unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries.
Yeah, really sad when I heard that myself. Really, really sad, and it can happen anytime, anywhere. So you gotta always stay vigilant, but you never know.
Yeah, keep your head on a swivel. I mean, not saying that he did anything wrong.
No.
But sometimes we're always reactive. You know as well as I do. We're always reactive to everything that happens in the field. So
Yeah. And a good thing that you did just say that, bystanders kind of saw that and contact the station to help render aid. So contrary to popular belief, what the media would have you believe that, the whole community out there isn't against law enforcement. There's communities out there that want and respect and need law enforcement and will do whatever they can to help us out. Right.
I would honestly say, just in my time in the field, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, as well as I do, we've experienced the negative side of people giving us the business and, telling us all the things that they want to tell us that aren't good. But at the same time, we get so many people that come up to us and hey, sir, thank you for your service. Thank you guys for what you do. We really appreciate it. Even though we know you don't hear it a lot, we want to let you know that we appreciate you guys being here and we appreciate what you guys do every day. Surprisingly, I'd say more people than anybody would believe supports law enforcement.
Absolutely. And just like when we say that the bad apples in law enforcement are few and far between, less than 1%.
Oh yeah.
I'd say the same thing on the public side too. The ones that don't support law enforcement are few and far between on the minuscule side. So
absolutely.
Yep.
The sad part is just that we see all of it. We see all
we
of
do.
that bad side. So it seems like it's more, but the reality is, it's not as bad as a lot of people would be led to believe.
Right. I mean, that's just the nature of our job, especially, working patrols. You see people on the worst days. We don't normally respond to calls where people say, "Hey, I just wanted to say hi and I love you and here's a pie." Right. We usually, respond to domestics and fights and all that sort of stuff. So we see people on their worst day 24/7, or at
Yeah.
least, 23/6.
Yes.
We see it, most of that. So we got to kind of, train our minds to know that, this isn't the whole populace that's like that.
Right. Right. And we got to be able to release all of that negative ourselves. When you start talking about being exposed to such negativity on a regular basis, you have to understand as well that that can take a mental toll on us as well, and how we relate to our family and friends, and how our mental health is as well, which is a major thing for law enforcement as a whole. We suffer the PTSD, we suffer the depression, we suffer, all of those things that some of these people that we deal with on a daily basis deal with, just from the simple fact of having to go and help them and deal with those things on a daily basis. But, it's incumbent upon us as officers to have an outlet, have a way to, relieve that stress, release that negative energy, and be able to, stay mentally fit and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, for sure. So let's talk about, your career. So you came in as a deputy where you worked custody. You said you did that for about 5 years, and then you went out to patrol. Talk about your career progression from the time you got out on patrol.
So it's funny. I was actually just having a conversation. You can't see the picture on the wall, but I have my academy picture
Let's see if we can. No, we can't.
right here. Let me see if I can turn.
Okay.
Look
Yeah,
at
you
this.
can kind of see it right there. Yep. The
Yeah, it's
top.
not
Yep.
crystal clear. It's not a very good camera here. It's not as good as yours. But that's actually one of five academy photos. So that academy photo that you just saw right there is my last, second to last academy class. And I know that might make people say, well, how many times did you go through the
Right.
but that was my job, and I'll kind of get into that. So when I got into the academy, I started the department at 32 years old. And I'd have to say I was in the best shape of my life at 32 years old. Spent 5.5 years in custody. I worked as a line deputy. I worked as a training officer in custody. Then I promoted. I worked as a supervisor, a line supervisor, prior to going out to patrol. Went out to patrol, lost my stripes because you can't take those with you. You got to start over. So then I went out on patrol training, Lakewood Station, 2013. Worked on the line for a couple years. Went to a team, worked on a special team for about a year before promoting to an FTO, field training officer. Did that for about 2.5 years. So a total of 6.5 years at the station. A lot of hours put in, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But I wouldn't change any of it for the world. That experience and the level of knowledge that you gain from working with so many people and different cities and doing all those things is you can't put a price on it. So 6.5 years there. Then I went to the academy as a drill instructor, which you can see. This little thing here was one of our logos. So I was a drill instructor at the academy for about 2 years before transferring over to our tactics and survival unit, where we taught tactics to our field officers and port deputies and custody deputies. We basically train the whole department as far as tactics are concerned, less than lethal weapons, things like that. And then from TAS, went back to the academy for a final class before I promoted to sergeant. And then, promoted to sergeant, went back to the field. And that's where I've been since.
Nice. Okay. Would you go back to the academy as a sergeant if you had a chance?
Oh, that'd be a great job right there,
In a
man.
heartbeat, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I always thought that would be a cool job. Talk about the drill. We called him. I went to Orange County Sheriff. Called him attack officer. I don't know what they call him in LA County, but that seemed like the cool job. You get to work out, run all day, yell at people all day. Man, that's a job.
That was I'd have to say, as my experience, and different deputies will tell you different things depending on what their experience and their paradigms are. You got some guys that tell you major crime is the best job on the department, and you got some guys that tell you homicide, or some guys will tell you aero because they love to fly and they want to be in a helicopter, and that's great. For me, being a DI was an amazing experience in that. Yes, you get to work out on duty. Yes, you get to yell at people all day long. But the biggest part of that, and the difference between Orange County and LA County. So Orange County has their instructors, but then they also have their TAC officers. So the TAC officers were the ones that were yelling at you all the time.
Yes.
And then the instructors were the ones that actually came in and taught the classes.
Correct.
So at my department, we do all of it.
Oh, okay.
So we are the TAC officers, we are the instructors, we are the PT instructors. The only thing that we didn't teach, as far as our academy classes were concerned, was firearms and force. So we had specific force instructors, you have specific firearms instructors up at the range, and then you have specific EVOC instructors at EVOC. But
right.
Everything else related to their learning domains, we taught. So
yeah, I think that's kind of the same setup. I'm out here in the inland in San Bernardino County. So, I work with those guys all the time at the San Bernardino Sheriff's Academy all the time. And I think they have the same kind of setup where they're the TAC instructors and they're actually the classroom instructors as well. So
yeah, it's a good balance, right? And it's a great way for us to relate to the recruits on how we wear different hats in law enforcement and how we have to be able to switch from here, to here like that, right? We have to be able to transition from dealing with, telling mom that her husband died or that, her baby has to be taken away from her to, breaking up a fight or even being involved in a fight, and just being able to go from call to call and change those levels of how you respond to people and how you talk to people. So for us, it was the same thing when we're with recruits. If I'm wearing my smoky, they know it's all business all the time, and they better be on point. But once we're in the classroom and the smoky comes off, then they'll get a version of me that's more like this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. That duality there. When do they know as a recruit, because you're already on pins and needles regardless if you're out on the track or you're in the classroom, but to see you as out on the track, you're yelling at them, and then as soon as we get into the classroom, you're Mr. Nice Guy, and you want to instruct and show me the correct way in this learning domain or what have you. That's kind of trippy too.
Yeah, because I mean, it's hard for new drill instructors to be able to switch it. It's a learning curve, just like with anything. You just have to learn how to do it and how to convey it. So that's really what it boils down to, is how do we convey it? So my way of conveying it to all of my classes was, they saw us from day one, Black Monday, we're smokies on, they're getting yelled at, they're getting smoked on the grinder, doing laps, doing push-ups, or whatever it is that we're having them do for the mistakes that they're making. And we're relating those mistakes to law enforcement and how they're going to deal with certain things in the field. When we go from that to now I have to teach a 3 or 4 hour class with them, how do I get them to engage and be receptive to what I'm teaching them if they're like sitting at attention thinking that they're going to get yelled at? So what I always did was I just kicked the door in with my smoky on, and I come in, I yell at them, make them stand at attention, make them get up out of their seats. Then I tell them to sit down, and then I tell them to sit at ease, and then I'll take my hat off, and then I'll explain to them the difference between that Deputy Williams and classroom Deputy Williams, because I want them to be open and understand that they're not going to learn if they're on pins and needles, like you said. But when they're relaxed and they understand, okay, this is a safe space, then they'll be more receptive to learning. And that seemed to work very well.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. So it's just you and me right now. So we can keep this on the low. Did they give you guys, kind of like when you're interviewing for that position, to see how fast and quick witted you are to be able to, come up with one-liners to yell at the recruits about? I always love those officers with, we're able to come up with just like that on the fly when the recruits are on the line and they're yelling at you. They just come up with the best lines. I'm telling you.
All right. So this is how that works, right? You have some guys that are a little bit more quick-witted than others. We grew up playing a dozen. So if you didn't know how to be able to snap back, it was a little bit of a problem. But for us, you just pick up on something that you see on a recruit. You go at it. The whole point of that is to try to get not only the recruit to break character, but see if you can make your partner break character. Right. So it's always a competition between me and my partners. Was like, if I can make him laugh, then my job for the day is done. Right. But that's the thing, is that we're not going to break character in front of the recruits. We're going to remove ourselves from that situation. So anytime you think back to when you were in the academy and your instructor just turned and walked away, and that somebody made him break character and they got him. That's what that was.
No doubt, man. I got just great memories. Not at the time, obviously, but I went to the academy, 20 something years ago, 24 years ago, and just still thinking about those stories is just crazy. It was fun. Let me tell you.
They always told us the one thing you will always remember will be those situations in the academy, and 100%. I still, I see my old DIs, they're lieutenants, and they're running around the department doing their thing, and it's funny because I'll bring up funny stories like, hey, you remember when this happened? I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you remember. Yeah, because they did it. You just do it so many times. It's just over and over and over and over. It's
no doubt.
Constant.
No doubt. So, you were talking about earlier, the kind of the duties of what's going on in the jails. And a lot of that is partly, dealing with the mentally disabled, the mental illness that's going on, plaguing our country all over. And, a lot of the things that came about with, Proposition 47s and all these other props, where now the jails have to deal with things that were relegated to the state before. The felonies were downgraded to misdemeanors.
They definitely did a lot with that.
Talk about how that affected you guys.
So that actually, calm down. So AB 109 was a proposition or assembly bill that came out during, like, right before Prop 47. And AB 109 took all of the state prisoners that were, I would say, what they call it, low violence, if you will, that were in there for the nonviolent crimes. And they said, okay, well, since they're nonviolent and they're convicted, let's, instead of having them in state prison, let's put them in county jail. So they sent them to all the county jails, San Bernardino, LA County, all throughout the state. And it left us with more people in jail than we necessarily wanted. What that did do was increase the population. It also increased the amount of overtime that we had to work, because now you got more people in more places we had to, basically take into our custody and care for. So with that, we got a lot of mentally ill. We got a lot of, just regular people as well. And we ended up having to just work a lot more. So, the financial part of that is definitely good for us. However, the time away from the family is not that good, and the time away from doing those things that you want to do, like being on vacation and stuff like that, just kind of goes away because now you're required to work. So that made a difference as far as that's concerned. And then in 2014 with Prop 47, obviously they just went and released everybody. So now the homeless, out in the field are just gradually increased, and then you see what it's at today, vastly different than what it was in 2014.
Yeah, no doubt. It's not just here in California, but you see on the social media that California seems like it's the epicenter of what's happening, or microcosm of what's happening across the nation. When you see social media with all the burglaries at the at the retail burglaries and all that sort of stuff that's going on, it's just crazy, and it looks like they're trying to repeal Prop 47 now.
It would be, in my opinion, I think what's happening is they're finally realizing everything that all the law enforcement leaders and sheriffs and district attorneys were trying to tell them at the time that they were looking to pass this bill. Now they're seeing it all come to fruition. Now they're seeing how the state is basically lawless. When you don't have consequences for people's actions, of course, there's no accountability. So if there's no accountability, people are just going to run around and do whatever it is they want to do, which is the whole purpose for us having laws in the first place. We have laws so that people act civilly, right? And one of the biggest deterrents of people just doing whatever it is they want is the fact that there are consequences for those actions. I mean, for the most part, we like to think that everybody is just generally good. We'd like to think that, and for the most part, most people are. But if there's a crime of opportunity, that a person could commit, and there's no accountability for it, or no consequences for it, the chances of them committing that crime are higher than not. So and that's just survivability, or people thinking in terms of, selfishness, or what's going to be good for them or their family at that time. But, laws were put in place specifically for that reason. So if you're going to put a law in place that's going to negate 25 other laws that, of course, those 25 other laws, and, people are just going to go do whatever they want. And that's what seems to be happening with these street takeovers, with the smash and grabs, the burglary crews, the home invasion crews, the carjackings, and it's just constant.
Just constant. You would think it would be common sense, as parents, if you just let your kids run wild in your house without any consequences, it's just going to be a bad day for all that, So you need to take that philosophy out into the real world.
Right.
And let them, but that's not how our lawmakers are. Well,
at
least they're starting to feel that way. They're starting to see that.
Yeah. And, we all know, and, especially how we were raised. I'm 50 years old this year. So the way we were brought up and the way we were raised as kids, I mean, don't get me wrong. We as children were our own parents for a good portion of the day, while mom and dad were at work. We ran around outside with our friends, and we didn't have to worry about half of the craziness that's going on now. And we were safe, but it takes a village, right? So, you think about the block you grew up on, everybody's mom that lived on the block was like watching you.
Yep.
And they watched all of us. So, if I did something wrong, my friend's mom come snatch me up. Hey, you did this, I'm telling your mom. So I'd get in trouble there, and then I'd get in trouble when I got home.
Exactly, that part.
We don't have that in today's society, and understandable as to why, just because of the way the world has evolved. But you don't have that in the world today. But then, at the same time, you don't have some of these parents actually teaching their kids what's right and what's wrong.
Yep. And part of the reason why you just said, like somebody, your neighbor or your auntie or whatever would, snatch you up and punish you right there on the spot and then tell your parents and then they punish you too, is
Yeah.
that nowadays, the parents will be like, why are you touching my kid?
Yeah.
Who are
Yeah.
you? Don't, I don't know you, you leave my kid alone. This isn't your right to do this, that, and the other. So, people are kind of more hands off.
I get
Sincerely.
that. But that's their fault, and
Yep.
it's their fault for not getting out. I mean, the Bible says, love thy neighbor, right? So I know my neighbor here. I know my neighbor there. I know my neighbor across the street. I know my neighbor back here. I know my neighbor over there, over here.
Yeah.
And, so that we understand that this is a community, right? It's not just a community because it's a city that we live in, but it's a community because we all have a common goal of safety for ourselves. What happens when there's a major disaster or something occurs and we are all we got.
Yep.
We have to be able to come together and enact that community rule. So
That part. Yep. Exactly. So you were talking about, your career, and you're now back at the station, in the car station, as a patrol sergeant. God willing, you get back there soon. Talk about, your job as a sergeant. What do you kind of do on a daily, and what's kind of rewarding part of your job as patrol sergeant?
my reward as a sergeant is the same as it was when I was in the academy. Leadership, right? Um, Leadership is something that is absolutely key to any successful team reaching their goal. And our goal is to be, the best we can be for the public that we work for. So for me, leadership is allowing my deputies in the field to go out and do their job, go out and learn, go out and make mistakes, and then try to help them fix those mistakes, how to make them correct those mistakes without necessarily pointing a finger and trying to jam them up, so to speak, and write them up and get them in trouble and things like that. There's a lot of things that's just opportunities to learn, right? Teachable moments, and just being a leader, just being there for those guys, letting them know that I support them and I understand what they're going through in the field as new deputies because I've been there. I've been that trainee, I've been that field deputy, I've been that training officer, so I understand the stress that they're under. However, they're under a very different stress, today than we were under. Yeah, there's always cameras, but now we got body cameras and now they have to deal with that and cope with that. So, just trying to express to them and explain to them that they have to be better than we were. They have to be better at their jobs than we were. I'm not saying that we were bad at our jobs, but they have to have a different way of doing the things that we did effectively and not have it look like they're doing something illegal. I mean, you understand what I'm saying. You go out on a traffic stop and, you talk to somebody that you detained because you had a reasonable suspicion they were doing something based on whatever. Okay, cool. Now you go and you talk to them. Some of the things that deputies today have to do is they have to kind of narrate that as they're talking to people so that the camera can hear it and the camera can see it. And that helps them articulate their reasoning for the things that they do. Because we didn't have to do that. We just did it. We didn't have.
Right.
So now they have cameras. They have to be able to explain that because if something happens, goes sideways, they get into a use of force, God forbid, they get into a shooting or something like that. When they go back and they start looking at the camera, well, why did you do this? Well, why did you do that? Or why did you do this? They're going to look at the camera during a critical incident review. So as they're reviewing a critical incident and they're watching that video, the video is explaining because they're saying verbally, I'm doing this because of this. I'm doing this because of that. This is what I see. This is what I saw. And that helps, explain the ramp of, escalation of force or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no doubt. And
Yeah,
then
fine.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, though, excuse me. On the flip side of that, what's kind of a challenging part of your day as a patrol sergeant?
Trying to get my deputies to stop saying curse words while they're on camera.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it happens. Trust, it
Uh,
happens.
it
you know.
happens daily. It
Yeah,
happens daily.
yeah,
But you know, the bad side to that is, it's minor. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's minor. Um, Trying to get them to understand that there's a different way to speak to people and get their point across without having to curse them out. Especially understanding, how that looks to the public and, how that's going to look to, uh, the higher ups. How's division gonna act when they see this video because you got in a use of force and your language is super colorful. I can only help them so much. And again, they have to understand and be accountable for their actions and be able to explain why they do what they do. But then at the same time, when the punishment and discipline comes down, they're the ones that have to take it. They have to understand why they have to take it and what they did wrong. If they're not going to make, if they're not going to make changes to correct those mistakes and they're going to keep making those same changes, then they're going to keep getting disciplined until they find themselves out of a job.
yep, yep. I mean, there's a time and place for that kind of language, but that's usually not 90% of the interactions we have with the public.
Right. Right. And I'm not saying that they're just out there cursing people out because, by all means they're not. It's just, hey, let me see your hands. Put your hands up. Put your hands up.
Yeah. Right.
That's usually how it goes. But then that's still, as far as, our brass is concerned, it's still a no.
Yeah. Yep. It happens, and you got to learn to adjust, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We have to be evolve. That's the thing about being humans, right? Is that we're constantly evolving.
That we are. At least we're supposed to be.
Allegedly.
We're supposed to be. We're supposed to be. So what's next for you?
Get back to work. Like you said, I would love to find myself in a position of not in the field. You know what I mean? Somewhere that would be possibly, a training bureau or something like that would be great. But get back to work and see how that goes and see who's gonna look and say, hey, Tori, you want to come work over here? Sure.
Yeah.
Talk about it. If it's something I'm interested in, it's something I have a passion for, then by all means, take that step. But still yet to be seen as far as that's concerned. Who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, I'll just punch that button and say, you know what?
Yeah, it's time, right?
Yeah.
At some point it will be, but you're still young, brother. I mean, only 50. What's retirement for LA County?
At 50 years old, nothing.
Are you 3 or 50?
Yeah, it's 350. But
Okay,
no,
yeah.
we don't do that. Ours it's a scale. So right now I'm at 17 years, so I haven't hit my first longevity. That's at 19. At 19, I could put in papers for that retirement. I'd be 19 years and 52. I'm only looking at like 28% of my salary. I'm cool on that. Nah, that's not worth
Oh
it.
no, no.
Nah, that's not worth it.
Nope. You got to find another job after that.
Yeah, you gotta go do something else. But
So sometimes guys make that work where they still go back to maybe not their department, in a civilian capacity, or go
right.
work for another department in the civilian capacity, make in training or firearms or what have you. So
Yeah.
some people make that work
I mean,
less stressful.
there's a lot to be said for what we learn in this career
Yeah,
that you can take and move into the civilian sector and be very comfortable.
yeah,
I know guys that were that were traffic guys, and I was never a traffic guy, but there's traffic guys that were like all about handling the traffic collisions and all that stuff, and they can measure out stuff and do all this, and that
Yeah.
too much for me.
Yep.
Like that's a whole lot of math that I'm not trying to do. But they transition that to working for some insurance company,
Yes.
as an adjuster or adjudicator or whatever it is they're doing, and make a pretty good living doing so, with that expertise.
Yeah, currently I'm in investigations and I'm working, we don't call it kiddie porn anymore, but child sexual abuse material.
Oh
So,
man, you're better than me. I can't do it.
yeah, I mean, that's the hard part. But what I was getting at is the stuff that you learn about tracking people down on the internet,
Yeah.
devices and computers and forensics and all that sort of stuff is something that you can parlay into the civilian sector, most definitely.
Very easily. Yeah. I mean, I have friends that work at SVB. I know a guy that left LAPD and went and worked for American Express as an investigator, a fraud investigator.
Yep. Yep.
Make money, doing, take those investigative skills and move that right into something that's gonna benefit you. For me, I was an instructor, doing tactics and weapons and things like that. So, like you said, that might be something that we'll transition into.
No doubt. No doubt. And then you being, this podcast is called the Black and Blue Podcast, and the two of us are both African Americans in law enforcement here in not only in the U.S. but here in Southern California. But
Yes,
what have you seen changes from when you first started in your department, as far as people in positions of leadership up to today?
There's more. We'll start with our undersheriff, and then we'll go down to our assistant sheriff, both Black, tons of chiefs, commanders, captains. My captain's Black. At my station, my lieutenant's Black. My operations lieutenant's Black. 4 of my partners are Black that are sergeants at my station. I mean, I had a couple mentors that were sergeants and lieutenants on the department before I came out. And I've always seen us in those positions of power, and I like to see us in those positions of power. And, you'll probably remember this statement from the 90s like I do. I mean, I'm not sure how old you are, but you tell me you're 25 years on, so I imagine you're at least 40.
Yep.
At least 45, right? So
I'm older than you, bro.
Right? Each one teach one, right?
Yep.
That's what we heard coming up. So that's how I ended up where I am as a sergeant, because someone like us saw something in me and helped me get there. So that's it's a great thing to see. We're getting a pretty steady number of Black recruits through the department.
That's all I was going to ask you.
Just as many as when I came through, except for the fact that my class, when I came through the department, my class was 144 recruits, and now the average is anywhere between 80 and 100. And I'd have to say a good 15% or so.
Okay.
15% or so, 10 to 15%. And it's steady. It's been that way, at least for as long as I was at Training Bureau, as far as I know. I left there a couple of years ago, but that's how it was up to the point where I was there, and even while I was there. So, we come through. The difference is now, these kids are millennials, so they have a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
They have a very different mindset than we do. So it's incumbent upon us older guys and more experienced to kind of just see them, grab them by the ear and say, "Come here, Junior, let me tell you some things." Let me kind of tell you
right.
how you to navigate this department, or how you need to navigate this career. And it's not to say that I need to show them how to navigate it in a sense of anybody's against us, because we're not. If you look at my department, I'll tell you my department is probably 60% or more minority, right? And we're talking Hispanic, Black, Asian, other. Whereas most people are like, okay, well, what are all the white people doing? Well, they're doing the same thing the Black guys are doing. They're doing the same thing the Hispanic guys are doing. They're doing the same thing the Asian guys are doing. Is they're going out and they're doing their job every day.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. There's no inbred, racism, or inbred, uh, you know, let's keep this guy down, or let's keep that guy down because he's Black, or let's keep this guy down because they're Black. But it almost seems like sometimes, depending on the administration that comes in, when there's a new sheriff, that sometimes, we're more sought after because they don't want to appear in that way.
Right. Yeah.
So, you take, people take that how they will.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. Everybody wants to push inclusion and, say, oh, well, we're inclusive of this and we're inclusive of that and we're tolerant of this and that. But the reality is we're all deputies. We're all doing the same job. And if you're capable and you're qualified, then I'll give you the job. And that's really how I feel about it. The color of your skin, or, who you pray to, doesn't matter to me. Are you qualified?
That part. Yep. Are you finding though, ever since 2020 though, law enforcement agencies have had a hard time because a lot of these millennials don't want to be cops now.
Man,
Especially people of color don't want to be cops, for whatever reason. At least that's the narrative. And we're all competing in the same pool. You guys are competing with LAPD, which is competing with Long Beach, and we're all competing for the same applicants, and that applicant pool has gotten smaller.
Yeah. So for a time, it, again, like I said, when you have a different administration, you have a different sheriff or a different chief of police, they want to do things their way. So they kind of start changing certain rules or regulations or things based on what they want. Right.
Right.
And, when we had our previous sheriff, he was all about hometown heroes. So his thing was, we're only going to hire people that are from our area. We're going to hire people from LA County. We're going to, that's going to be our demographic, which is kind of a downfall. Or even if he said Southern California, that's still a downfall. What are you going to do from the guy that comes from Missouri that just left the Marine Corps, just spent 4 years in the military, did 2 years in school, and now he wants to move here and become a LA County deputy sheriff because somebody that he met in the military is an LA County deputy sheriff, because they're still, doing their service as a reservist.
Yep.
And he can't. Now, you just possibly gave up a very good applicant because he's not from here. But then at the same time, we have, like you said, we're all pulling from the same pool, and people are going to probably choose something that's going to be a little bit closer to home, because somebody from San Bernardino don't necessarily want to drive all the way to LA, to go to work every day, especially if they're saying you have to work in custody at Wayside. So now you're driving to Castaic 2 hours every day to work and 2 hours from home, depending on when your shift is, which is most likely going to be early mornings to start. So you're getting out in the morning and you're driving in traffic. So all of those things kind of play a part. After 2020, you're right, man. We call that the summer of love, because
summer of love.
I'm part of the sheriff's response team, so we spent a lot of time out there dealing with the riots and all of that good stuff. So yeah, there's a very big change in the mindset of people who would have, possibly signed up to become, law enforcement. If I had to look at it and think about it personally, I'd say there's probably a 15 to 20% drop in interest in doing the job now, following all of that,
Yep.
was then, right? You're still obviously going to have those that can come from the military, and this being a natural progression for them, career-wise, to go from military to law enforcement, because it's kind of the same makeup. And then, you have those legacy, applicants, because, they have mom, dad, uncle, or whomever on the family that's law enforcement. And then just those that just still have an interest. I mean, they're still there. It's just a matter of finding them. Where are those guys? The guys that grew up like us, like me, that, had a positive experience with law enforcement as a child, and have that shape my mind as far as what I thought about law enforcement.
Right. Well, that's the part right there, is we got to get those positive relationships, those positive interactions with the community today, so that, I mean, it's not going to help us in recruiting today, but if you have those positive interactions with the community today, with the younger folks tomorrow, you may get those people that, at the very least, they don't have negative connotations towards law enforcement.
I think most people have those negative connotations simply because they listen to music, right? Yep. And they like the music, listen to Snoop Dogg all day long. And
hey, I grew up on NWA, and I'm still here, so.
Exactly. I remember when it came out in 1988. So, we were all listening to that, but they're listening to the music. They're watching these crazy shows that aren't necessarily beneficial to us. They're watching the news of every possible negative view of law enforcement they could have.
They're watching this. They're watching this.
Yeah, and they're the social media. It's amazing if you look at social. I'm not gonna name any names. I'm pretty sure right? If you look at social and you start talking about firearms, right? If you're talking about firearm safety, or as a content creator, I'm sure you know this, but you start talking about firearms and firearm safety, and you're showing guns and you're shooting and doing all these things, well, you're going to be shadow banned and you're going to be pushed off to the side. They don't want to see that. But if you show somebody being shot from some surveillance camera, that thing plays constantly. So the negative side of it. And that's the same thing with us. They're constantly feeding all of the negativity. They're not necessarily showing the good stuff. And the bad part about that for us as law enforcement, as a profession, is then you have these departments doing these knee-jerk reactions where they're like, oh, well, we need to go out there and do something. Let's do this ice water challenge. Let's go do this. Let's go do this, or let's go do that.
Yeah.
And I saw that you interviewed a guy I know, Ryan Tillman, Breaking Barriers. He's actually my partner, who I work custody, patrol, and as a sergeant with, is his next door neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ryan's a cool guy.
Cool. He's a good dude. Good dude.
But then you see Ryan on there dancing with the kids out there doing his thing. And what? Some people will say cops have no business doing that. Well, you know what? He's a school resource officer at the time. So he does have.
Yes, in that point. Yeah. I don't expect somebody to get out their patrol car and get out there and start dancing.
Yeah.
Or me in the investigations bureau getting out, doing a search warrant, and then we start doing, some dances, but
Exactly. But that's his realm, is interacting with the kids and showing them that we're not all just get up against the car, That's not who we are. Now, can that come out? Of course he can when it needs to, right? But him being there, bonding with those kids and showing them that, he's human too. He's just a regular person too. And he likes to have fun. And you okay, dog? She over here dreaming. He was in his space. He was where he was supposed to be doing what he was supposed to be doing. Now, do you have some cops out there that try to do that while they should be doing the other thing? Of course you do. And those people should go and do their job.
I know a few of them. Yep.
They should go and do their job. I'm all for that. But when the departments are having these, we have to just feed everybody everything. I'm not necessarily on that train. I think that some things still need to be held close during investigations so that that investigation can run its natural course and not be coerced or changed or influenced by outside sources,
Right.
so that you have the best opportunity to get the purest overall result from that investigation by not just saying, hey, just so that we can appease you guys, here's all the information, here's all the video. I don't necessarily agree with that, but hey, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
And they don't pay me for that, probably why they don't.
Yeah, I've seen a big change in that, in recent years, releasing body cam footage and all that sort of stuff that, you would have thought years ago would never happen. But, a
Yeah,
lot of times, it shows like in use of forces that, when you release that body cam, it shows why the officer did what they did, as opposed to,
right.
you getting the neighbor's cell phone and then you just see that one side, that one little clip.
Yeah. Well, and that's my point, right? That kind of adds to my point. So even releasing the body cam still is not going to give you the full story. It's still going to give you, a partial view of what happened. It doesn't tell you what led up to that particular clip that they're going to show. So,
Sure.
when they show up on the news, here's the clip, and here's this officer brutally getting into a fight with this guy, punched him in the face. And when you release it to the people like that, yeah, that looks bad. Of course it looks bad. All force looks bad, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see it. It all looks bad, no matter how it starts and how it finishes. It all looks bad. But there is a reason for what happens, and there's a reason why everything leads up to where it does. And when it gets out to the public and all they see is this little bit of information, coupled with however the news media or the reporters decide to portray that information, it makes us look bad. It makes us look brutal. It makes us look violent. It makes us. I mean, yeah, we're being violent. Of course,
Right.
we are. We have to be in that particular moment because we bring all the weapons to the fight. So,
Yeah.
we have to be able to be violent to end that situation quickly and effectively. But then at the same time, I look at some of these things and I'm just like, man, that guy needs to train, you know.
Yeah.
But
The,
we
the
can.
the acorn the acorn incident is
Oh my
exhibit
God,
one.
that's wild.
That
That's
is wild.
wild.
Yeah, wasn't
But
that crazy?
that also goes to show you, those incidents of PTSD. Wasn't he a former Marine or something like that? Been
Yeah,
deployed.
I believe so. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
seems like that should have been weeded out, in the pre-employment process.
yeah, possibly. But there's just you just never know, man. The human mind works in a very mysterious ways. But
Yeah.
uh, I I I feel bad for him for having to go through that. I feel bad for the guy in the back of the radio car that had to
Right.
go through that. Thank God he wasn't injured or killed. And I hope they're getting that guy some help.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy. All right, Sarge. Hey,
Yeah.
man, I appreciate you stopping by and sharing your story with us. Hey, real quick, you were talking about, each one teach one, and you had role models in your past that kind of guided you in this way, whether you thought so or not. What about your little ones? Any of them want to be like dad?
There was a time that there was a time that my middle daughter was interested in becoming a deputy or becoming a police officer, and that time has passed.
That time has
That
passed.
time has passed, and now she's thinking about going into veterinary work. She wanted to be a veterinarian.
Okay. All right.
But my son's an artist, so I have four kids. They age in range from 6 to 28. So my son's the oldest. He's an artist. He's still living in Chicago. My oldest daughter's in college in Florida. She'll be graduating this year. My middle daughter is getting ready to go to college next year. And the little one, she's the little one,
Mm,
doing her thing, just being 6 years old and cute. And
yeah.
but yeah, I don't necessarily see any of them going that route. But if they so chose to, I'd do the best I could to kind of help them guide their career in a path that's beneficial and safe,
Yeah.
for them. And, you can't always keep everybody safe all the time, but, we do our best.
Yeah. It's gotta be nerve-wracking for parents of cops to always wonder, and especially since if you were a cop at one point, you kind of know what's going on out there.
Yeah.
So, for those legacy applicants, those legacy kids that are out there doing it, and then their parents are sitting there wondering, yeah,
Yeah.
it's got to be tough. So, I don't envy. And my kids, I got two in college right now. One's about to graduate from UC Riverside. So, but he didn't want to be a cop. He's trying to be a doctor. And my
Yeah.
daughter's over at Howard. She's a sophomore over there. She don't want to be a cop. So it's all
Good for
good.
her.
It's all good. Yeah, just go
No,
ahead.
yeah. I
So
mean,
long as they're healthy and happy and productive members of society, that's all we could ever ask for as parents, right?
that part right there. Yep, absolutely.
All
And
right.
even if they did, I mean, um, I would just, suggest to them, even if they did, say, hey, you know what? You have me as a resource. You know my experience. You know my time on the department. You can always come to me and ask me any questions. But I would just tell them, whatever department you're on, just find somebody that you see doing good work, that's in a position that you'd like to get to, and talk to them, ask them questions, and let them kind of help mentor you into getting to that space the same way I would mentor them into, mentor my son into being a man, right? Or, mentor my daughters into just being responsible, respectful young ladies, right? That's their mom's job to help them be a woman, but it's my job to still instill that discipline and things like that, so that they grow up and don't just go out and be all wild like some of these people are these days. Having that discipline and having this figure, as a dad, helps keep them on the straight and narrow path. And that'd be
Yeah.
my biggest thing.
There you go. And one last thing before I get you out of here, Sarge, how about some words of wisdom for the viewers and the listeners?
Oh man, words of wisdom. Yeah, you mean as far as like future cops or just people in general?
People in general, but we can cater it towards law enforcement. Anyone that's looking to get into law enforcement, but just some words of wisdom, to some words to live by.
Just go through life with integrity. Um, be respectful, be responsible, be accountable. We're all human. We all make mistakes. Lord knows I've made my share of mistakes, and it may have taken some time to realize it and take accountability for it. But I feel at this point in my life, I've taken accountability for those things that I've made mistakes on. So just you make a mistake, just own it. Be accountable for it, make amends. Don't hold grudges and all that negative stress and energy, because it just brings you down, and nobody has time for that. So do what you do with pride. Carry yourself with pride, how you dress, how you walk, how you talk, how you interact with people. For young men that want to come in and be police officers, just understand that it's a tough job. It's demanding physically, mentally, emotionally, and you have to have, that emotional intelligence. You have to have, patience. You have to be able to talk to people and deal with people, convince people to do things that you want them to do, without you having to put your hands on them. And, if you can figure out how to do that, you'll be successful in whatever it is you do in this career.
There we go. There we go. All right, Sarge. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And this is Good times. Good times. We learned a lot about you and your department, and even your little doodle back there. We we learned about that too.
She looked like a little piece of fried chicken over here sleeping right now.
Little piece of fried chicken. Oh man, churches or what we talking about? Popeyes? What we
I
talking
would
about?
say that's an easy piece of Popeyes, the
Yeah.
spicy.
Yeah. All right. All right, Sarge. Hey, you enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you get back to work soon on that shoulder.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Dale. It was a pleasure to meet you, brother.
You got it, man. Take care.
Okay, take care. God bless.
Okay, now another awesome interview with another awesome guest right here on the Black and Blue Podcast. I want to thank Los Angeles County Sheriff Sergeant Torre Williams for dropping by to share his story with us. I appreciate it, sir, and wish you continued success in everything you do. If you guys out there enjoy Sergeant Williams' story too, let me know by leaving a comment right down there below. And don't forget to like and share this interview too. I'll be back real soon with another story from a minority in U.S. law enforcement. But till then, come on now, say it with me. Stay black and blue. I'll holla at you. I'm out. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.